We're live!
Hello,
everybody!
And here's Sam with a musical number.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to hear me sing.
It's an all-booktuber version of Hamilton, and go! No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Samilton.
Hey,
Oh,
huh?
good one.
Clever.
Oh, man. Well, welcome, everybody.
Yes,
the
glad you're all here.
Live show time.
The second BooktubeSFF Awards.
Yes.
We did this before and we didn't learn our lessons, so we're doing it again.
Yep, and we got more people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be gentle with me, everybody.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes.
All right.
Oh, man.
Go through and introduce ourselves again.
Yeah, that would probably be good.
And we should, and tweeting the link now should also be handy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Gang tweet the link here. So.
Gang tweeting.
Mm-hmm.
West Side Story 21st Century Edition.
So hello everyone, my name is Nicole. My channel is Nicole's Adventures in Science Fiction. Welcome to the second, hopefully annual, BooktubeSFF Awards live show. Today we will be discussing the books that were nominated, and the judges, which is we're all the judges, will be selecting our winner, and I'll also be announcing the winner of the popular vote, so who the community voted for as the winners as well. Everybody else want to introduce yourself?
I'm Samantha from Sam's Nonsense, here to discuss all the lovely books we read.
I'll go. I'm Chelsea. I am from the channel The Reading Outlaw, and this is my first year participating as a judge. And so thanks to all last year's judges for having me on as part of the process. It was a lot of fun, and we'll have some stuff to talk about, so I'm excited.
Shall I go? I'm Eleanor from Eleanor Reads Books, and it's also my first year, so I'm really excited. And I think I might come up with different answers than everybody else. You're all a lot more sort of science fiction focused, and so I'm thinking I might be that one that puts the spanner in the works, so we'll see.
Okay.
Hi. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was you have the crown, so you do your thing. Paul.
Hey guys, I'm Paul from Come Touch of Fantasy. I review mostly just more generic fantasy books, the average Joe type of reader, so thanks for inviting me.
And I am Thomas from SFF 180. Hello.
Hello.
And the best one to laugh. I am Caitlin from Kitty G.
All right.
Okay,
So I think we should have a prize for the best crown at the end. Definitely.
Oh, that would be a tricky one. I don't feel like
hard.
prepared for that.
That would need to be a viewer vote.
You guys can all vote in the chat for who has the best crown. Alright, so do you guys want to just get right into it and talk about... Whoa. Caitlin, are you still there?
She looks like she froze out.
Oh no. Caitlin?
My internet's being bad. I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Carry on.
What category do we want to start with?
Do you guys want to start with best short work? Oh, we should mention beforehand. We are going to assume if you're watching the live show that you've either read most of the works or that you don't mind being spoiled. There might be spoilers. We're not going to be discussing any specific book in great detail because we want to try and get through things at a pretty good pace, but there could be spoilers. Warning up front, if that's going to bother you, maybe not the best show to watch, but I don't think we're not going to like specifically go over like detailed plot synopsis of every book, so probably won't be that bad, but it's possible. So yeah, so you guys want to talk about best short work first?
Yeah, let's do that one first. Definitely.
Okay. So in this category, we had 3 nominees. They were Binti by Nnedi Okorafor, Perfect State by Brandon Sanderson, and Midnight Hour by Mary Robinette Kowal.
No.
I don't know.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah. Hang on a sec.
I was a little bit surprised by the Brandon Sanderson. I think it's because I have been reading the epic fantasy side of Brandon Sanderson. So to get into something that was much more science fiction, like brain in a jar trope kind of thing, I thought was really interesting to see from him. So.
Mm.
I thought it was a bit average, that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different sort of idea for him. It's outside of his wheelhouse, but I don't really think he did anything interesting with the concept once he had it. It was, the character sort of tells his story to the other character in flashback form, and it just goes on like that. And I just,
Do you
I
think
did
that would
not
have made a better novel? Do you think if he'd made it longer, it would have been better?
I think it needed to be, personally, I think it needed to be, like, more philosophical, and that, like, that's really where I thought he was going in, like, the first half of the novel.
Yeah.
And then the second half takes a really different, more action-focused direction, and I was really put off by the second half of the novel. Like, the first half, or the novella, the first half I was like, ooh, this is cool, this could be going someplace interesting, and then the second half I was like, eh.
Yeah.
I kind of have I kind of have that with Brandon Sanderson anyway. Like, I always expect a little bit more than what I get, I think, which is why that tends to be hit and miss for me.
Which I was surprised, because usually I have like a hard time following battle scenes. So Sanderson's battle scenes are usually fairly like simple enough that I can really follow with what's going on. But that one just did not work for me like at all, with the car chase and the giant robot and like lightning magic, and I don't even know what was happening there. So
did anyone pick that one as their favorite? Did anyone pick that as their favorite?
I actually did.
Come on.
I did. I think with me, I connected to it because I'm an MMO gamer. I play a lot of computer games, and so there's this very connection with the story that I had that other people wouldn't, because it really seemed like he was playing like a ultimate strategy MMO type game where he's like his own god. And if anyone has ever played any games like that where you're your god and you control the little minions and stuff, like I thought that was cool. I thought that whole idea of him being a god set up in this world and it being better than the real world and all the philosophical ideas with that was very interesting. I agree with everybody else as well, though, that it was a better book with that stuff, and adding an antagonist just did not help it whatsoever. I thought the antagonist ad was cheesy, and the whole giant robot thing was stupid. So.
Yeah.
But I loved the idea that he was going to another place to meet this woman to possibly propagate and
these different worlds, these different, that environments that have been created for each of these people were potentially really interesting. I love how he went in. The guy from the epic fantasy world goes into this sort of like 1920s Art Deco thing, where the gangsters are sort of having these, and there's one bit of wit in the story where he sort of jumps into this gang fight thinking it's the real deal, and
then it's paintball.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and so there was but he never really quite fully, he never took any of it far enough, I thought.
Yeah.
And you're right, and then he just eventually kind of lapsed into convention at the end, and so it's like no cigar.
Okay, so we've got one person voted for that one. What about Binti?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like Binti.
I like Binti.
Yeah.
I didn't like Binti.
Yeah, Binti
No, I
is just about, yeah. This is the one category for me where there was a clear winner, simply because Binti is just on a level on its own, and it's just, this is a story that accomplishes more in 70 pages than most of the full novels that I read. It's about culture, it's about feeling, it's about being in a place where you feel like you don't belong, it's about trying to rise above all of the strictures that have been imposed upon you sort of by your culture, and then it's all about this kind of horrible meeting of, I don't want to say minds, but you do have clear groups of enemies, and at the end the way she kind of helps to sort of pave everything over with compassion and let's come together here, let's try to understand each other instead of going on this endless course of just war and meaningless slaughter. I mean, it was beautiful. It was just beautiful all the way through.
I liked the ideas behind it, but I didn't feel any of the emotion. I didn't have any emotional connection to anyone in it. I think that's the problem with me. I need to have
I honestly was bored throughout the whole of Binti. I found it like the most boring thing I've ever read. I sat there and was like, this is so dull. Why am I reading this? Like, it's a short book, and I was bored. So.
Well, you're just wrong, Kitty. I'm sorry. You're just desperately wrong.
Personally, I've liked Okorafor's novels. So I've read 2 novels by her, Lagoon and Who Fears Death. And I think the things that she does well in Binti, she also does well in her novels, and I think she does it better in her novels, basically. Like, I think novella form might have been a little too short for this story, and I think it it probably would have done better being expanded a little bit more and making it maybe novel length, like being a very short sort of novel. I think it would have been a little bit better if we'd expanded and like the second
she's
half
working on a sequel novel.
Had been.
Yeah.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, she's working on a novel-length sequel.
Cool. Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, and I think that'll build a universe that she just for in that novella. It all just
Sorry,
little
Tom,
pieces just clicked at a period of time that she allowed herself. You know.
Yeah, I think, because I love Lagoon. That was probably, like, that made my top 5 books that I read last year. And I think that Okorafor does this really great job of pulling in those really fascinating aspects of, like, African mythology and folklore and culture into her kind of idea of what science fiction is and means. And so I really, really enjoyed those aspects. I really liked once they met the aliens, that kind of dynamic of conquerors versus the supposed conquered, and how what can seem like an act of aggression is also an act of, like, extreme cultural violence. Like, it's not just a matter of taking someone from something else, but the thing that you take is, like, so meaningful and important to that other culture that it also crosses, like, a different boundary. Mm-hmm. So I think kind of feeling out some of those ideas, like Nicole said, would have worked better if she'd had more page space to do that in. So I'm glad to hear she's writing a sequel that will give us more of that.
Yeah, but that I think that is sort of the key theme there, is this kind of culture blindness that you can have simply not understanding and then not bother taking the time to learn until it's kind of forced upon you. And just the way that Binti ended up just sort of kind of being the ambassador who's sort of bridging that gap, was just beautifully handled. So.
Yeah.
So that was your pick then, Thomas?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Did anybody else pick Binti as their top? Ooh. So Midnight Hour then.
This was my vote for top. I had no idea going into this story what it was going to be about, but then from the conceit to the execution, I just thought that Kowal really knocked it out of the park. So
beautiful. Yeah, I love this one. Really love this one. I think it just had that kind of fairy tale vibe to it, but then it was kind of different from a fairy tale as well, and she put her own spin on it, which I really liked.
That's what I liked about it too.
Yeah, I just think it was one of those stories that, like, for a short length story, it worked really well as a complete thing for me, and I felt like that was all I needed. I didn't need anything else from that story. I was quite happy.
Yeah, I thought it was really touching as well. You don't often see, like, you've got a married couple and the things that the wife is doing to sort of. I just thought it was really touching and like a nice loving story, which you don't always get, especially in, like, Kings and Queens. There's normally some sort of dysfunction where the king's a bit stupid or the queen's evil, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of this, like, grown-ass man being like, I want a puppy! I want to ride ponies! Let's play tag! Like, it just made me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. Actually, I gave all these shorts a 3, so they're very close for me. But Midnight Hour, I thought the whole idea that there's a curse, that she can't say her name, other people can't say her name, they don't know who she is, and then he's only lucid for that 1 hour each day. I thought the idea was amazing, but the follow-through for me wasn't really all the way there. I wanted to know what would happen afterwards, like. And that's the issue I had with this one. I just wanted. I know it's stupid to say that for a short you wanted more, but I did. I wanted more out of what would happen.
Well, that's
with
yeah.
the
I mean, a lot of folks have been saying that. About
Yeah.
a lot of the stories. It's like, oh, but if only there had been more. And I think that maybe comes with our conditioning. I think most of us probably read novels more often than we do
Yeah.
short stories
Especially,
anyway. And it's sort of like, wow, but this is. And in fact, the main reason that people give for not reading short fiction at all is, well, I like novels. I like to get into a long, in-depth tale, and short stories are just too bite-sized.
Especially when you're doing those epic fantasies that are, you learn everything about the groomsman's second cousin to the king of this other place and all of that stuff. So.
And there's 4 names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why so many names, fantasy? Why so many names?
Shirley Smith.
I agree with the people who with Caitlin and Eleanor and Chelsea who spoke before. I think of the short fiction that was nominated, I think this is the only one that I really thought the short story length was appropriate. Midnight Hour was the only one that I thought short story length was appropriate, and it kind of packs its emotional punch into that short story, which is really what I want out of a short story. Is I just want that one strong note to come through. There's an idea and there's a strong note that comes through, and I think it did that, and that's kind of what I expect out of a short story. And so for me, this was the most effective example of short fiction, basically.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, so there's five votes for that one out of 7.
Yep.
I'm making notes.
Someone has to. So
I
just
believe
like the school teacher in the background. Keeping
It's
us all in
someone not
check.
eating loads of biscuits.
I believe that means Midnight Hour is our winner. Do we want to do second and third as well?
Oof.
I gave both of the other
that's
2
a toss-up
3.
for me. Probably Binti and then Perfect State
Mm.
as 2 and then 3,
I'd go
respectively.
the other way around, but it's close.
I gave them both the same.
Okay. I'd probably do Binti and then Perfect State.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay. For the record, the popular vote winner was Binti. Midnight Hour came in second, and Perfect State came in third.
That does not surprise me. I saw a lot of love for Binti floating around on Twitter and Instagram and all those various places. So, Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like Thomas is right after all. Winner.
More people agree with Thomas. And
Thomas has got the popular vote.
the long list is going to be published on the Tumblr once we're finished with the live show, as well as the popular vote winner things. Those will go up when we finish.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows.
All right, should we do?
I'm excited about that.
do little quick tweets and things.
Should we do graphic or young adult?
Let's do graphic.
Graphic, yeah.
All right.
Graphic. So
I thought this was
hard.
the strongest category by far.
I gave everything in this 5 stars.
I really.
So I'm not terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, literally everything. So
You must
but I know
decide.
who my winner is, I think.
All right. So we have 4 nominees in this category because there was a tie during the nominations. We have Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 2 by a bunch of people. Names I never remember.
Wilson and Cowles.
Yes. We have Descender Volume 1, 10 stars by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Wynn. And we have, what am I forgetting? Saga Volume 5 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples.
Yeah.
That's
So
my
I've
one.
already said mine.
Okay, so who starts?
This one was tricky
I
for
agree with
me.
you there, Eleanor.
Yeah. Caitlin and I were talking about a little bit as we were reading, and it's so hard because the stories and the art don't, like, Descender took it for me in terms of story, but I just think The Wicked and the Divine is such a beautiful object in terms of how it looks. I know, Sam, I know you're, like, cringing away from the camera right now. But, so it was hard to, that's the thing about graphic novels, is it's hard
The
to
art was beautiful. That was the only thing I liked about The Wicked and the Divine.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But so it's just hard to, like, reconcile those two very kind of different aspects of the same piece of work. So
Yeah,
I'll probably
it's
give it
hard
to
decide
Descender.
which one you kind of root for more. But I think for me, like, Wicked and Divine, I love the art completely, and it shocked me when I read it because of the ending, which is just like, what the fuck?
That ending, man.
So, yeah. And then Descender is just like a consistently good story for me. Like, it's just getting better as it goes through the book, and I just find myself getting connected to the characters a lot more in that one. So I think the fact that it has really great art too kind of put that one as my top out of all of them, even though I gave all of them 5 stars. Loved the artwork of all of them and enjoyed the stories of all of them. So,
This
but
one
I am
made
like
me
one of
think
those
of
people who just
Star
like
Wars
is
and
obsessed with graphic
Firefly.
novels. So.
That's it. Just made me think of Star Wars and Firefly. Like, it was just had everything
Oh yeah, I
in
can see
it.
the Firefly.
Yeah, the Firefly.
And I miss Firefly.
I know.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So
I think the only surprising
like
thing is that we don't see more stuff out there where the graphic novels or books or whatever. We don't see more of them that are like, yeah, I liked Firefly too. Here's mine. You know, so
yeah.
I'm surprised that there is not more of that. But
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so we shouldn't be surprised to get what we are getting.
What did you think, Thomas?
Well, see, this is always an interesting category for me because graphic novels is not really, that's not a genre, I guess. If it is a genre or format, you might say, that I keep up with a great deal. I mean, I used to read comics a whole lot, like back like when I was in college and what have you. And at that time, my taste really went towards the alt comics stuff. And so, you know, I'm really into like the Hernandez brothers and Daniel Clowes and Joe Sacco and guys like that. You know, stuff that comes from like Drawn and Quarterly and Fantagraphics and those sorts of things. And so, so this stuff is always a discovery for me, like when the list comes in. I mean, I have a vague understanding of what people do read and like, you know, the people who are reading graphic novels now and the popular graphic novels. So among all of these, I was quite pleasantly surprised by Descender. You know, although again, it wore its influences on its sleeve, and the art I thought was quite lovely without being sort of crazy pretentious. The way like whenever something like DC Vertigo would do a comic, it would be look watercolor art, and you're like, well, great, but you know, big deal. But it actually had the combination of a really kind of attractive and sort of, you know, I won't say unique, but distinctive art style. That meshed actually pretty well with its story, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. Wicked and the Divine, also, yeah, I'll agree. It looked really pretty, but
Yeah. No, I feel you. 100% there.
yeah, but everything else. Nimona, I can get why a lot of people love it. You know, it's so fan servicey, but
it's an ice cream cone. It's a little ice cream cone treat. Yeah.
It was fluffy.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, my reaction to it is, yeah, you know, it's cute. And then finally, you know, Saga, I just maintain my opinion that it's super crazy overrated and has no direction, or at least not any direction that I can pick out at present. And it follows the same kind of formula with each volume, right? You know, like they introduce this likable supporting character that you really kind of warm up to, and then they kill him in some horrible way. You know, and I don't, as we were saying before we started here, I don't really buy this kind of underlying conceit of the whole series, which is we're supposed to believe that this one child presents such a powerful threat to both sides in this war that this child just must be hunted down through the galaxy or what have you. And I've never found that believable. And couple that with the fact that because the series is narrated by the child as an adult, we know that nothing's going to happen to the child.
Right.
And so the whole thing just seems to be marking time towards some kind of conclusion that's, you know, kind of predetermined. And
the only thing I can figure that they're leading up to is that you're going to eventually get to a volume where you're following the child as an adult, and then it takes off from there. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish they'd get to that already. I mean, it's like, okay, we get the parents thing, and they're having, you know, usual couple problems and all of that, and it's turning soapy. And it's like, okay, well, then let's get to this kid. Let's get to this kid growing up and doing shit that is really a threat to justify all of this.
Yeah.
And it seems like, I mean, to get to volume 5 and we just keep starting plot lines, but not wrapping up really any plot lines that have already been started. Just it's starting to be a lot of pans on the stove
Yes.
to kind of keep track of.
Well, by the time I got to volume 3, because I had to read them all, because I hadn't read them, I was like, this was really starting to drag. It felt like it was kind of the same as the last volume, and it was getting a little like repetitive, I guess, for me. Like I was just waiting for something a little more exciting to happen than what was happening.
It's like you read volume 1, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I totally get it. Why everyone, and then you keep going with it, and you're like, okay.
It feels like there's a few filler volumes in there. You know, like when you get like I'm watching Gotham at the moment, and there just keeps to be these sort of filler episodes in there where they sort of try and move the plot a little bit, but not enough, and you just think, just get going.
Yeah, feeling really padded.
So are we all agreed on Descender on this one, or is? Oh, sorry, Nicole.
I actually like. I would say I liked Nimona better than Descender.
I did too.
I agree that it was a lot of fun, but I think particularly towards the end of that graphic novel, it had a big emotional impact for me. So I agree that it was a lot of fun, but I think it was more than just like a light, fluffy read, and it had a lot of impact at the end, and I like really got attached to the characters. And it's also the only one in this category this time around that was a standalone, so the series is complete. You know, it's not a continuation. And
that helps.
I do frequently enjoy that with graphic novels when they're, you know, either a short series or a single volume where it's complete. So I would say that I liked Nimona a little bit better than Descender, although I did really enjoy Descender as well. Wicked and the Divine, I like the art. I kind of agree. I like the art. I liked the last issue, the first 4 issues in that volume. I was like, eh.
Yeah.
And Saga, I also agree. Like, I like Saga, but I do feel like there's just too many things going on right now and not enough, like, big storyline progress.
Yeah. I love the way Nimona subverts its tropes and very blatantly and consciously plays with those, you know, Sir Goldenloin and Ambrosius Blackheart and that very kind of tropey on its head thing that it does. I just think it pulls it off very well.
Yeah, Nimona was my favorite.
Like sexual tension in Nimona.
Yes! All the homoerotic subtext, give it to me.
So excited.
What about you, Paul?
I really liked Nimona. I thought it was the best out of these. Descender was right there with it, but Nimona and the way that it showed loneliness at the end of the graphic novel and how it showed how people forgive differently. Like Nimona couldn't forgive what was done to her, but Ambrosius and Blackheart were able to forgive each other from their past. I thought that was really strong at the end, and I really loved that. Descender's fantastic. I love the art. I love the story. But Nimona, just at the end, it had that emotional punch. And Wicked and Divine and Saga, I just don't like.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Paul. I think I would have to say, you know, on reflection, Nimona just far and away has the better character moment.
Can't change your mind.
I'm sorry. I know. I never. I mean, they're literally like here for me.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, because they're both like literally here for me because each one does what it does extremely well. But Nimona has
Nimona as well. It's like it's a complete story, whereas all the others are like volumes in a series, aren't they? Like Nimona is complete as it is. That's it. I don't know if we're going to get like another one, but it's a complete story as it is, whereas the rest are not. So,
and you're also, on the others, you're relying, aren't you, on future things being just as good for the story to carry on as it
like
is.
Previous ones as well.
Now watch, Descender's gonna just end up being like Saga for the, you know, it's like Volume 1 was great, and then
that, Thomas, don't say
Volume
that.
two
I
was
love
good,
Volume 2.
good.
Volume 2 was so good.
actually have not seen Volume 2 yet, so I'll have to hopefully it measures up. Yes,
it does.
So what's everyone's first choices then?
Nimona.
Descender.
I've got
Descender.
Descender. Thomas.
Okay, I'll overall, just for presentation and everything. You know what? I think I am going to swap. I'm going to go with Nimona because I agree that being a self-contained, complete entity, you know, is that's a big plus too.
I think Nimona just gets it.
Nimona
took it.
Yeah.
Took it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to assume we have Descender in second, since it sounds like...
Yeah.
And then it sounds like maybe Wicked and the Divine?
Or like
The art
screaming.
I'd go
alone?
Saga.
I'd rather have Saga be.
Yeah.
Alright.
Damn it, Chels. It's just me and
I
you.
know, you and me hanging out over here in our God reincarnation corner. That's fine. It's a fun corner.
All right, so the popular vote winner was also Nimona. Second place was Saga. Third place was Descender, and Wicked and the Divine was fourth place, or is fourth place.
Really? That is
That's
surprising to me.
Yeah,
Popular voters, that is
think-
surprising.
The bigger issue, it looks like more people just didn't read Descender. So Descender had a larger number of people not rank it than Saga did. So I think it's probably just an issue of not as many people had read Descender, because they were very close actually, for second and third. And so I think the issue was just, or not really the issue. I think the difference was that not as many people had read Descender at the time.
And I know lots of us are completionists out there, so if you've read the first 4 of Saga, the odds that you're just going to keep going are pretty high. So. But that's fair. Yay, Nimona.
Yeah.
And Nimona, was nominated for the Andre Norton Award this year too. So I mean, it's got a real, there's quite a wave, of support for it. So.
Well, good, because Noelle Stevenson is amazing. She's my lady crush du jour. She's fantastic.
All right, so do we want to move right along and talk about the best young adult novel category?
Sure.
Okay.
Eleanor's ready.
So
I really kept the books I love.
For this category, we have 3 nominees. We have Illuminae, which Elena was just holding up, by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. We have Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and we have Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo.
This was my favourite category. I mean, I like YA anyway, but this, they were all pretty high up. I had 2 4s and a 5. I think you can tell which one was my 5. But I was really surprised actually by Six of Crows, because I hated the Grisha trilogy. In fact, I can't even say I hated the trilogy. I only read the first book because I really didn't like it. And I was really surprised. I liked Six of Crows. It was good. And I didn't need to have read the Grisha, which I quite liked. And it was, it was just fun. It wasn't anything too deep or too much. It was just fun. And that's why I liked Carry On, because that was fun and fast. But this was just something a bit different, I think. Just had something a bit extra, the formatting, and I just thought that was brilliant.
I liked Six of Crows. I led the group read for Six of Crows, and I liked it. I just felt like it got mispitched. It's pitched as this kind of junior Ocean's 11 big heist, but
it wasn't really a heist. It was like
like 2/3 of the book is character background.
Yes,
which I enjoyed the background and the characters, but that's not what you're selling me here. You're selling me a heist novel.
Yeah.
So without a heist, I just felt like it kind of got a little away from itself. I loved Carry On with all of my heart. I just loved it so much. And Illuminae had me up until the very end in the escape pod with the radium poisoning, and then just be gone. No more. It doesn't matter. So that's where it lost that one for me just a little bit.
I think my favorite of these was probably Six of Crows. I mean, I don't know. I had a hard, these are all kind of hit and miss for me. I think I rated them all about 3 stars. I like Six of Crows. It was better than I was expecting, but it felt, well, first it was a heist thing, the fact that it wasn't a heist. It was a prison break and character development more than anything, and I felt like that it was focused really heavy on the character development, but I still enjoyed it. I mean, it was still a pretty fun book. And then my second favorite would be the Simon Snow one, Carry On. I really like that one. Although Simon I preferred Baz as a character than Simon.
Yes.
Didn't we all?
And then even Illuminae, I don't know, I got really, really bored.
I just hated blacking out the curse words. Like, I don't.
Oh, God, that was so irritating.
I spent more time trying to guess what the curse word was supposed to be that they were blacking out.
If he said "come" one more time, I was going to slap him. Like, it was, every other word was "come," and I'm like, just stop.
Yeah, who even says that? Who even uses those words?
Yeah, that was like the silliest thing in the whole book, and even though they tried to like hang a lampshade on it right there on page 1, where it's like, oh, just ridiculous, isn't it? Everything that goes on in this story, and we have to black out the curse words, ha ha ha. You're like, okay, great, you're being self-aware, but it's still just dumb. I mean, just print the, yes, print the fucking curse words. I mean, come on.
Damn right, Thomas.
Yeah. Because we all know what you're saying. It's not hard. It's not hard. Yeah. Illuminae didn't actually. It didn't sell me until about the last 200 pages or so. Mm-hmm. The first 200 pages were just anguish. It was, I wanted to just slap the teenagerness out of Cody.
See, I disagree with this opinion that people have of like this long-distance relationship not being realistic, and I have reason for that because I was in a long-distance relationship for 3 years, and this is what I did. Like genuinely, this is what we did the whole time. So for me, even though that wasn't the exciting bit of the novel, I was completely like so connected to them for that because I was like, this is what me and my boyfriend do. This is what we spent those 3 years doing when we weren't together, was like texting back and forth, doing silly pictures made out of little numbers and stuff, and just having.
Did you blur out your curse words? It's okay.
We didn't blur out our curse words. That's one thing we did not do.
Yeah, but to be fair, Caitlin, when you were living that situation, you weren't dealing with, oh, my planet's just.
Yeah, I wasn't on the spaceship.
And my family's dead, and everyone I know is dead, and bombs are falling on me, and it just seemed like, okay, look, all this stuff is going on, and you got these two kids who are like, well, I thought you didn't like me. Well, I thought you didn't like me. What if just.
That's what they would be worrying about at that age.
I think sometimes that's like,
I would
situations make those things even more prominent as well. Like,
I will say, working with teens, they're incredibly self-centered. So if anybody is not going to care that the whole world is ending, it's going to be two teenagers.
Yeah, but I mean, I think teenagers would be, and it's not to say that Katie and Ryan, is it? Whatever. Ezra, that's it. Yeah. Not to say that they won't. There'll be a bit more like emotional priority towards like, oh, my family and all. And you got that. Finally, we got that like later on in the novel when like Katie goes over to the other vessel, and like her first priority is I need to find the shuttle that my mom was on, and that doesn't turn out well for her, and that was like, okay, we're now actually getting into some like emotional truth here, like genuinely affecting stuff, and like the last 200 pages I thought were just expertly handled. Like they finally got they warmed up to their whole concept, and the whole the gimmick of how it was presented finally, I think, worked in service of the story. Whereas like the first 200 pages, it wasn't connecting to it so much because it felt to me like the whole thing was. It didn't feel like I was reading a novel written by authors. It felt like I was, going through some sort of, I don't know, game experience put together by a dev team, right? Usually when you read a novel, right, there's this authorial voice that you connect to, and Illuminae didn't have that deliberately because of the stylistic choices that were made. But they finally got around to, okay, this is all sort of working, and now the action is ramping up, and this style is really helping to sell the action. And so the last 200 pages were fantastic. I mean, very cinematic in just how bam, bam, bam it all was, and that worked great. And then they had that goofy reveal at the denouement and ruined it. But so I mean it was like I think all of these books were kind of 3 stars for me, and so but yeah, Illuminae was this interesting mixed bag, and I'm glad to see books out there that do try to sort of let's redefine what a novel can be. Let's try a new approach. Let's try to do something different with narrative. And so I mean, I admire that kind of creativity, even if it doesn't work all the way around. At least they tried to do something really, really new. And I could admire that.
I think the second book as well, from what I've seen of people that have picked it up recently, the arcs. I think the second book is a similar format. They've not gone, oh right, we'll just do the second book as a novel. I think the second book's all done in the same thing, which I quite like the idea of.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to follow different characters.
I think my oh, sorry.
I didn't realize I was going to follow different characters. Sorry.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
It's the space station.
I think the one thing I didn't like about Illuminae was I hate Space Odyssey. I hate it. The computer is exactly like how, and so the whole time I'm like, oh my god, I'm like reliving Space Odyssey. So I think that was part of the reason why I didn't like it either, because Space Odyssey I could not separate the two for whatever reason, just because I do not like that movie.
Maybe it was that Space Odyssey reference right at the beginning of Illuminated.
Yeah.
Really that one up.
Inserted itself and it stayed with me.
Well, that especially
did any of you catch that in some of the names and some of the list of names there were other young adult authors?
Yep, they actually did like a fundraiser thing where you could bid to have your name included in like the death list.
I didn't know that.
From
they're doing that again. They're doing that again for Gemini.
Lainey Taylor, I think, was just tweeting about how she was in the first one, and if you wanted to donate to some charity, you could have your name in the second one, and but I did, which of course made me go through the whole list of like 80 million names if I recognized any of the other ones.
The whole 2001, like again, that was one of those things that didn't work for me simply because it was a case of, again, just dropping an obvious reference into the story for the sake of doing it, and what you end up with is Ezra, who is a teenager in the 26th century, is the guy who says, "Oh, well, it's like that old movie 2001: A Space." Yeah, like you're gonna, like, a teenager, he's gonna talk about a 600-year-old movie, he's gonna know about this, and it's like, I don't know, I watch some channels where they're like, they're it's millennials and they're into, YA and all this kind of stuff, but I don't hear too many millennials and teenagers talk about, hey, in The Miller's Tale.
Not unless they're bitching about their English homework, in which case they're all about that Chaucer.
And I would like to
tell you, man, the Decameron is lit. I gotta tell you.
Oh, Thomas, hearing you talk teenage slang is probably the best thing in like the whole world.
I'm also saying I would hope in 600 years that Space Odyssey will not be remembered.
Let's hope that of all the sci-fi entertainment pieces that can continue to live on, maybe that one gets moved into the Criterion collection and brushed past.
I like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I have not seen it.
I love it. Yeah, for all of it.
You lost your card, Caitlin. You lost your sci-fi fantasy card. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
I've got the book. I haven't read it yet.
So do we want to talk about Carry On a little bit more? Because we spent a lot of time on Illumina just now.
I loved it. As previously stated, I am all about those LGBTQ themes, especially in young adult literature, especially that don't end in tragedy, especially when they involve witches. I just wish that system of magic had been a little bit more fleshed out, and just there were times that I was totally on board, and like, words are magic and the power of words are inherent in the way that we use them, but then there were some times I was like, that is stupid. That is like the silliest thing that I've ever read. So again, I thought good progress and good attempt, but she just missed the mark every now and then.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, you go.
I enjoyed it, like the beginning. I think the middle started to drag for me. That was primarily because of Simon's narration, and by the time we got to Baz's narration, I enjoyed the story a lot more. But I liked all of the other characters except for Simon. He really, I don't know what. I think it's because he was so whiny that after a while it kind of got on my nerves a little bit. But I like everyone else.
He's very like Harry Potter 5th book. If nobody likes me and everything is awful kind of character.
It felt like to me that like it was the 5th book of Harry Potter at the beginning. I didn't like the beginning at all because I did feel like, wow, we're just going into some massive rip-off here. And like it's just too close. Everything is too like the same. And I like the idea of having those similarities, but I felt like for the big chunk of the first bit I was like, oh, I know this story and I know what's happening and then it really sort of took off, and as you say, like when we got Baz's perspective and that side more, I really started to enjoy it. I just wish we'd started from the beginning in that sort of way, and like you say, the magic system just a little bit more. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I gave it a 4 stars, and it probably would be second for me, but yeah, just the beginning bit I was like, oh, we're just reading Harry Potter and we've missed 5 years.
I didn't necessarily like Simon's narration, but I really like the way she dealt with the chosen one trope, because the chosen one trope is one of those things that always bothers me, because like your chosen one always has like these horrible conditions that happen to them as a kid or as a young adult or whatever, and then they overcome it. And every time I read a story like that, I'm just thinking, you would not be able to overcome, being an orphan and being abused as a child like so easily. Like the things that happen to Harry Potter in the Harry Potter books are terrible, and he's way more messed up kid than he is in those books.
Mhm.
And so, I didn't necessarily enjoy Simon as a character. I thought he was a much more authentic character and much more authentic product of his environment than a lot of Chosen One characters are.
Yeah.
And that was good.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, and I think part of and spoilers for Harry Potter, if you have somehow missed that boat. A big part of Harry Potter with the whole Harry Neville, like it's part of the thing there is Harry is the chosen one because someone just kind of decided he was going to be the chosen one, and so I think Rainbow Rowell kind of does a good job of ripping on that idea and the idea that the chosen one isn't necessarily a one, or isn't that there are other factors at play there. I just really liked it. It's just so hard to find young adult books that have people of differing gender identities, sexual orientations, people of color, females of color who aren't just pushed to the background. So it got all the diversity points and all of the fantasy trope turning on its head points that it can get. So I really liked it.
Mm.
So Paul, I don't think you've chimed in much. What were some of your thoughts?
Carry On, I enjoyed it. I gave it around a 3. I really loved the relationship between Baz and Simon. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. It's a character book. The actual plot wasn't that bad. The whole idea of like what happened to the past with Baz's mom and vampires and stuff, I thought that was cool. Where I kind of didn't like it was at the end with the headmaster and the magic they did. It just did not make any sense what they were doing and how it happened or anything, and that's where it lost me. Up until that point, it was like a 4 read, but then after that, it dropped down to 3. But it was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what everyone said. Illuminae was my favourite, and Carry On was a close second for me, but pretty much agree with what everyone else has said, so not much to add. Hated Six of Crows, so we won't talk about that one. You guys were like, oh, the character development was focused on. I was like, these characters were shite. I did not like them. Like, I thought they were the shittest characters I've ever encountered. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Did not like a single one of them.
And my favorite book was Illuminae as well. I think I liked the relationship between Caddy and Ezra like Caitlin did. I thought that the way that they were sarcastic with each other and how they just had fun talking to each other, I thought that was actually really reminiscent of actual relationships that people have. And like Caitlin, long-distance relationships, I had one a couple years ago. That's kind of similar of how it goes, just kind of like that. And I thought the formatting and the actual story was decent as well. Six of Crows, I thought the backstories were interesting. I thought the backstory of, what was it, Cal? Or is that the other
Kaz?
Kaz. I thought the backstory of him and his brother was really good. That whole backstory.
Yeah.
And I wanted that book. I really wanted that book. It felt like Dickinson-ish almost, like that backstory. But the actual current plotting, not that great. Though I did like Inez a lot. Inez was a sweet character.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
Oh, the Kaz and that was my favorite backstory too. I felt like some of the others were focused on way too much, and I felt like she was really trying to pull in a lot of like Lies of Loch Lamora.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
I didn't like Lies of Loch Lamora, so that was kind of pissing me off a little bit. I'm like, this is not the same. So, yeah, it was probably my second choice, but it wasn't like I won't read the sequels.
That was my thing, Sam, is I felt like I was maybe not giving a fair shot to Six of Crows because I was reading Lies of Loch Lamora at the same time, and I was like, this is just not.
There's no comparison.
It's like having real chocolate cake and then like a Weight Watchers 2-point brownie chocolate cake. Like, what even is this?
Like a little carob cracker or something.
Yeah, some black bean brownie nonsense or something. So, but yeah, I definitely got the Lies of Loch Lamora thing as well.
Yeah.
Definitely was at an unfair disadvantage there.
Some random hole opens up right at the climax part of that book, and they just go into the hole, and I was like, what just happened? How did that even happen? So.
Plus, there's a lot of like weird hooking up in snow tents for people who absolutely like loathed each other. I just thought there was a lot of that.
Their relationship was the one that I had the hardest time with because it was like we hate each other and then suddenly like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah, we need to be naked for warmth. This is just for warmth and survival, and not for any other possible reason at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
I have to say, as a whole, I'm happy with this year's young adult nominees, and I think they are much stronger than last year's young adult nominees. I was very happy with what we got this year.
I would definitely agree with that as well.
But there's better out there.
Yes. Also, yes.
Yeah. I know what I'm voting for next year already, though. So I was
gonna say there's gonna be some good stuff for round 3 in the YA category. So.
All
right, so
every time I read YA, so that's good.
we want to vote?
Yeah.
Yes, we should vote. All right, so first pick.
I will vote for Carry On.
Same. Carry On.
Oops. I'll also vote for Carry On.
I'm a Luminae.
I'm a Luminae as well.
I am as well.
Thomas,
it's your deciding vote.
Yeah, I'm the tiebreaker.
No, well, Thomas,
Okay.
what I can do for you.
Hillary or Sanders? Hillary or Sanders?
Oh God.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna hate myself in the morning, but yeah, it's Illuminate for me. I would sort of, I think of Six of Crows and Carry On as sort of being about the same kind of thing. Books that put a lot of work into their characters, no real work, at least not that was terribly impressive in terms of a really solid plot, and just very, very, even more uneven. I mean, they were all three were very uneven books.
Yeah.
But I'd say that, but to me, I think at least Illuminate kind of like delivered a payoff in exchange for sort of like making you suffer through all of its setup. It finally like just went all out.
I'll be reminding you of that during your next Twitter rant, Illuminate style. So
no, that's fine. Well, I've already reviewed Illuminate. I just so gave it my usual sort of 3 stars. I like this. I didn't like that bit. So, but now at least I get to post my reviews of the other two. So.
And so from the popular vote, the winner was also Illuminate. And Six of Crows was in second, and Carry On was in third. Carry On, as a whole, seems to have been a more divisive.
Yes.
Book. And I noticed this. I noticed this on the Goodreads group as well. Yeah. That like it had more people that really loved it and more people that really hated it.
Yeah. I noticed that too in the Goodreads group. It seemed like it was very Marmite, very yes or all no kind of thing. So.
Do you think the Harry Potter purists didn't like it?
Well, no, I would consider myself a purist.
Yeah.
I just think, like Thomas said, it was so...
stuff about the relationship, wasn't there? Like, a lot of people were sort of concerned with the relationship between the two of them and how that was a very negative relationship, and then it was made into something at the end that a lot of people didn't agree with it becoming. I think that was a concern that I saw on the group, so I can understand that.
I have read enough Wolfstar fanfiction that did not bother me in the slightest.
I also think it was probably cutting closer to the contemporary side of things than fantasy. It was closer to like contemporary than like urban fantasy in a way, and I think that didn't always work for people who are like really heavy fantasy readers. Yeah. Reading something that
I was very surprised by this one because I didn't think I'd like it because I don't read contemporary. So yeah, it was a bit of a divisive one, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, should we get to the big kahuna? Best picture, best novel?
Terrible.
Yeah.
There's going to be fights at this one, I think.
By far.
So in best novel, we have 4 nominees because we also had a tie. We have the fifth season by N.K. Jemisin.
The Fifth of Crows. No, I'm just kidding.
That's probably what I was about to say. We have Uprooted by Naomi Novik, A Darker Shade of Magic by B.E. Schwab, and Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson.
I was disappointed with this category. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I was disappointed with the nominees in this category.
Did anybody like Shadows of Self?
I did.
I like Shadows of Self.
I liked
thought it
it
was
better
enjoyable.
than
I gave
Alloy
it a
of
3,
Law.
but for me that's terrible because Sanderson usually gets a 5 from me, and for him to get 3 twice with the 2 things that were nominated this year, flipping bad year for him. Oh my God.
I
Like,
have to
not
say, I
good.
definitely liked it better than I liked Alloy of Law. I feel like we're slowly getting back towards the original
I didn't.
Mistborn mythos kind of stuff, but yeah, no, did
I was
not care
just
for
bitter
it.
the whole time that Fool's Assassin didn't make it.
Me too.
I think
Some of
that
us
one's
were
just
glad
too
they didn't have
far.
like
Yeah.
16 backlog books
Yeah.
just to get to the one.
Here, you have to read
nomination,
15 in order to get to this one.
so. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's the
15.
problem. That's the problem with like deep series installments. You know,
Mhm.
they're just gonna go, wow, yeah, I'm happy to read, you know, a dozen 900-page books to get.
But
So-
maybe after your hop along, maybe loads of people will vote for next
Exactly.
Well, big
There you go,
yeah.
Sam.
Spread that love.
Yes.
I will go ahead and say I despised both Uprooted and the V.E. Schwab. Darker Shades of Magic, right?
Darker Shades of Magic.
Yeah, I can agree with that one, but not.
I just wanted a whole book set in White London. Just give me the Danes for
Yes.
400 pages, and I am so there.
I would have liked
But-
a Darker Shade of Magic if I can't remember her name. What's her name? The girl.
Lyra?
Lyra?
You annoyed
Lyra.
her a lot.
I've heard that a lot. My fiance has also read this book and the second book, and he really hates her. Like, he really hates
I
her.
did not like her.
I like her. I don't have a problem with her. I think she's interesting. So
I didn't like it.
personally,
I
I
didn't
like everything in this category. I like Shadows of Self, Uprooted, and A Darker Shade of Magic, and I really loved the 5th season. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm not picking from among the lesser of evils, as it sounds like some of you might be.
I just find the
No, I
Darker
had
Shade of
one that I
Magic.
really liked and the rest I didn't.
The darkest Shade of Magic. I mean, really, he should have been dead, shouldn't he? I mean, how much
Yes.
can one person bleed?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should have
Yep.
died.
Should have been dead.
It was a little unrealistic. I'll give it. Yeah.
I mean, I
Should
can
have
just
been dead from the
believe, but-
start.
I think he's like
Never been alive.
You know, the thing I really liked in A Darker Shade of Magic was his coat, and that was the one thing that I took away and was like, I
So
want
many
that.
pockets!
That is so cool.
So
Yeah.
many pockets! I want that many pockets!
It kind of reminded me of Doctor Who because the 10th Doctor
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
pocket that was full. Yeah.
Mhm.
That was the one thing that stuck with me after that
Mhm.
book. Was like, it
Yeah,
was
that
bad,
was
but
very
that
Doctor
coat
Who.
was Great.
Yeah, now you think of it, it was very Doctor Who.
I think that's why I liked it, is because it reminded me a little bit of Doctor Who, and I like the concept of there being like these parallel worlds and like some people can go between them. But I think the characters are probably the weakest point of that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked the idea quite a bit as well. I thought the characters were not so great. The Danes were awesome. I love their stereotypical evil people.
Yeah.
And they were cool.
Yeah.
But like Elena said, he's bleeding everywhere. There's blood all over London. How many times did he get stabbed? And I realized that it's like blood magic, but come on. And
Yeah.
also,
No, yeah.
the guy that hunts them down, I forget his name right now.
Yeah.
Oh, the assistant to the Danes
Yeah,
or whoever, that guy.
The
Yeah.
guy from White London.
He just shows up when it's convenient for the story. Like, he doesn't show up like
Yeah,
when they're actually
100%.
doing stuff. Like, he could have showed up like any time during the party and killed them, but he just decides to show up some other time. So, yeah. But it was just okay. It was okay.
Very
It wasn't
convenient.
horrible, but it was okay.
Holland,
It was- yeah.
that's the name, yeah.
Holland.
Thank you,
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, also did not care for Uprooted.
We
I
can talk about
loved
Uprooted.
Uprooted.
I like
Not
I
care
did,
for
Uprooted
Uprooted.
was my least favourite.
Did
that was
not
my
care
5
for it.
stars.
Uprooted is also
That
a
one's
very
the
Marmite book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
That is what I've heard from everyone, is it is either you are in the Uprooted boat or you are 1,000 miles
Way out.
away.
Or you are
not-
setting the Uprooted boat on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Set it on fire.
What is it you didn't
Burn it
like
down.
about it? What didn't you like?
And granted, I feel like it's part me. Like, I feel like I went into it expecting one thing and then got something incredibly different. But
That's
I
always a
also,
trap.
yeah, but I also feel like there was some really kind of creepy stuff going on there with the dragon and
Well, yeah.
Agnieszka
Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
like but like creepy in like a sexual way that made me feel uncomfortable on the inside. And
that was what didn't make sense to me, sort of right from the outset. It's like, why, if all he's doing is like plucking some girl out of one of these villages to train her up in magic, why don't they just say, I need to find a girl who's got magic powers and train her up? Why is the whole ritual set up as being this big secret thing that has the entire countryside in terror because everyone believes that what this dude is doing is just, swooping down and, and grabbing himself some 17-year-old sex slave for 10 years? Why? Why not just, all he's doing is training in magic. Okay, and then it becomes like this exciting thing. I hope he picks me, right?
But no, it's like grooming in a pedophilic fashion this new concubine.
Like, at first, she's convinced that she is going there for that, isn't she? Like, she is convinced that she's going to go and just be abused.
Did they ever say?
Why?
And then you get in there, and it's like, okay, so to her, this is an incredibly frightening situation. To him, it is this onerous chore that he has to do because he's only doing it under the king's. That's the thing; it's under the king's command. He says that under the king's command, I must find a. So it's like, why doesn't everyone just know then that that's all that this is? And why is it not like, oh no, he's going to take my little girl away and horrible, terrible things are going to happen? And then it's like,
he just doesn't care. Like, he just doesn't care enough to explain.
But it's like, the story can get out other ways. I mean, it's like he interacts with people in his tower. He's under orders from the king. The king could just say, hello, subjects. Here's what's going on with the dragon. Here's what he protects us, and we do this.
But the king can't really control him. Like, if he decided that he was going to conquer the kingdom, the king probably wouldn't be able to stand up to him all that well. Like, it would be real bad for the king.
But you could at least take this misconception away about what is happening with the girls that he chooses.
Yeah, but he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Well, no, he doesn't. I'm talking about the king. The king could at least say, and then it's, there's so much. Why this? Why this? Why this?
The one thing I always wonder, and I don't know if they ever said it, but why didn't he ever choose boys? Like, why was it only girls?
Because he can't make out with boys, Sam.
Well, he could.
Well, I mean, he could, but I don't think his proclivities ran that way.
Why does this magic only manifest in a single 17-year-old girl in the entire kingdom every 10 years?
Well, it's not a single 17-year-old girl. It talks about that at the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, they sort of, but it's this thing that just doesn't make sense for so long.
Well, and I feel like I enjoyed the second, like once they got into the woods and the things that were happening with the haunted forest,
then it got more
really liked that. Yeah. So if we could have just had that without all this creepy stuff at the beginning, I would have been far more that. Because I've read books that do that sentient forest, evil magic kind of thing and just handle it much better than I felt Uprooted did. It was almost like these two disparate ideas got mashed up into one
there were
thing.
So many ideas. It's like, that's the thing that really annoyed me, was that I felt like I was reading one book and I just got my head around where it was going, and then we switched to another complete different direction.
It did feel very different.
And then it did that multiple times, and I just was like, what the hell is going on with this book? Like, it makes no sense. Nothing is like coming together in any way I can see. The story is just all over the place. So I was just like, no, this isn't going to be a good one for me.
But
and the
I'm
thing
sure
is,
not everybody.
The thing is that Naomi Novik is such a strong writer. I mean, she's such a damn good writer. And so you get individual scenes that are awesome, right? Like the very first time she sneaks out of the castle and they fight against the wolves and they burn the cows. That's like such a badass scene, but it's like, overall,
it's so choppy, the whole way through.
Well, it's just the way things are placed in the narrative. It's just stuff not making sense from one to the next. And it was so you have all this great writing with a completely messy story. It was a really bizarre.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
it was
so. She's drawing from a series of Polish fairy tales, which are they're kind of like the Brothers Grimm folk tales. And I feel like, so I actually do have some familiarity with those fairy tales, and maybe this is just me, but it didn't seem like very disparate influences to me. It seemed very cohesive to me, but possibly that's because I have some familiarity with those fairy tales because my grandma is Polish. So I don't know if that's like an issue.
That probably helps. Yeah.
I'm interested in what Sam and Elena think, because I know you guys said that you really liked it, and I'm sure lots of the viewers and voters did too. So I'm just wondering what.
Well, a lot of people do. I mean,
I think it was.
I suppose I didn't find that. This is going to make me sound really awful, but I didn't think it felt creepy. With like in this day and age, there's loads of 17-year-olds going out with 50-year-old men and all this, and I didn't. I didn't. Well, yeah. Well, he didn't look like that. You know, he looks all right. I don't know. I just found it really fun, and I think the bits that you didn't like about it being choppy, I didn't really feel that, but I quite like that in my books, where it's sort of, you know, I like a lot of YA books, and Uprooted felt like me. I know we talked about it originally. It felt very much like me, like it could have been YA, and I think that's why I liked it. It had that YA feel to it. It was very fast and fun, and I don't look, because I bet most of you are going to love the 5th season, and that for me was I find those ones too in depth. Like there's too much going on for my brain to handle, and I like something where I haven't got to think so much. So I think maybe that's why I liked Uprooted, because I agree with you in some levels that it's quite surface in certain areas, but that doesn't bother me as long as I'm captivated by the story at the time and I'm enjoying it. I'm very much a emotional reader, and when I read and I finish, I instantly know how I feel about that book. And that doesn't, like Uprooted, I read quite a long time ago. That was the one that I'd read way before it started.
Yeah.
And if I looked back on it now, I can't remember everything about it. I still know that feeling that when I finished it, I was like, oh, that was good. I don't know, they don't have to leave a mark on me for ages, and I don't necessarily critically look into them as much as maybe I should. I don't know.
Well, I think it's all personal taste, isn't it? Like, if it worked for you, it worked for you. It just didn't work for some of us.
I mean, I don't want to be his 17-year-old girl, but...
Good to know.
Just so you know. And I wouldn't want Matilda to be his 17-year-old girl.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
No.
Yeah.
So, do we have any more thoughts about Shadows of Self, or should we just go right on to the 5th season?
I think we can
just general.
move on from Shadows of
I'm
Self.
fine with that. I'm fine with that.
5th season.
The 5th season.
So I
damn, the 5th season.
I did not like it until I got through, and I had a really, really hard time. It took me like almost 3 weeks to read it because I was having such a hard time with those first like 250, 300 pages because it was dragging. It didn't make any sense. It just felt so weird, and I was like, this is like going nowhere. What is going on here? And I read a lot of fantasy, and I haven't read as much sci-fi, and it felt like kind of a melding of the two, almost to me.
Definitely.
And it just, I don't know. I didn't really like it, but the end I really, really liked, and the end is what sold me on the book itself. So it probably ended up becoming one of my favorite reads from this list just because of the ending, when it really started to pick up and things started to make more sense. But the first, I don't know. I don't even know if it, for me, I think if a book takes that long to get to a good place, it's not that great. But compared to the others, it was the best one for me. But that's just, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely
the beginning was tough in this one, and so you have 3 point of view characters, and there's a point about a third of the way or 40% of the way into the book where you figure out how those 3 are related and how they know each other, and I think that's really the turning point when things really get interesting, because once you realize what's going on with the characters and how they all know each other, you're like, oh, well, that changes everything.
And see, I had that feeling twice because it's like a third of the way through the book you learn how 2 of them are related, and then like 75% of the way of the book you figure out how that
all comes together.
Comes in. And it was at that point that I was like, holy shit, you guys, like this book just did a thing that was like a crazy thing. And I had to actually like stop and be like, okay, like I had to completely reevaluate how I felt about the first parts. But I'm kind of with Sam that I feel like if you have to get all the way to that point before you get to that moment, that's not necessarily like the best book as a whole. Although that ending did bump it up a star for me.
Which I think is why I was having a hard time rating this one, because though when I got to the ending and I was like, whoa, mind blown, that was like pretty clever, well done, you. But then part of me is like, but really should I have been dragging that much in the beginning? Like maybe it could have done something a little bit different. I don't know.
I didn't get the magic system-y thing with the all the rocks and everything. I think it was
Yeah.
overly complicated
they were-
for me,
Yeah, they
confusing.
had.
And is it orogeny? Orogeny? Orogeny?
Orogeny.
Okay.
I think that's orogeny. Yeah.
Orogeny, okay.
Mhm.
Which sounds like erogenous, which made me giggle every time I read it. That was good. But yeah, it was definitely a lot, and Jemison did the thing that a lot of fantasy writers do, where they don't really explain necessarily anything. They just kind of, it's out there, and as you read, you pick up more pieces of the puzzle to kind of figure out how it all works. But yeah, especially right at the beginning, I was like, who is doing what to who, and why, and how is it all working? And
Yeah, it definitely took a while to sort of get into that one, and I think the second person threw me off completely at first, and I was like, I hate this. What is this? So I don't like second person at all.
That's what I forgot to mention was that narration was weird. It was like pulling me out of the story.
Yeah.
Like, you are blah blah. I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm
not this person.
Not like that.
Yeah.
However, I did really like the other two point of view that we were getting from the beginning.
Yes.
And I found that really interesting, their storylines. I just didn't like that one, so it was like sitting on this 3-star of like, I like 2 out of 3, and then when all the reveals happened, I was like, oh god, it's great. So it went up to a 4-star for me in the end.
I'm also generally not a fan of second person, and I wasn't, as I was reading it, a fan of it in this book, but I think it makes sense once you get to those reveals, because that character knows how she knows the other people, and so it's a way for the author to obscure her knowledge and also to communicate her grief, because right away in the beginning, that person, her children die, and so it's a way, I think it was effective for communicating her grief and also of obscuring her viewpoint and her knowledge, and that she like knows what's going on, but she's not telling you because she doesn't want to like think about things in any depth right now.
Yeah.
I am intrigued how she's gonna do it in the next one though. Like, what's she gonna do for book 2 now that we have
if that whole book is in the you perspective, I'm out. I cannot hang for that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I really liked the 5th season. It's probably my favorite out of the novels. Then Shadows of Self, Uprooted, and Darker Shade. But with the 5th season, I thought that the world building, the magic system was just really amazing. Or how it tied into the tectonic plates and the volcanoes and all this stuff. And like the ability to completely destroy that one town. That scene was so great. I loved that scene.
Yeah, I mean, has there ever been a better opening scene in like recent?
Yeah.
It's like
I liked Esun, the second person perspective. I thought her meeting as a young boy that's like the rock person or whatever.
Yeah, the bone eaters.
I thought he was really cool, especially when that animal bit his arm, and she's like, "What? It didn't like bite his arm off. It turned into stone," and it was so cool.
Exploding weasels.
Right. I didn't care for the little girl perspective. Actually, I didn't think it really added a whole lot to the story. I wanted more information about what they found in that like pit building. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, I love that bit.
We'll get more of that.
I think that'll come in the
I'm
second
sure.
book.
Well, the title of the second book, I think, is probably a hint to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really like Cyanide as a character, and
I did too.
I don't remember his name, but
The Ten Ring guy?
Alabaster?
Alabaster.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I thought his character progression was really good. I hated him at the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
But towards the end, I actually ended up liking the guy, and I thought he was a decent.
Yeah, same.
I just get so sad when queer characters have such horrible story endings, and they were just so damn happy, and they just couldn't keep being happy, and it was just, why? It hurts my heart so much, but I'm sure it will serve a larger purpose. And seeing him come back at the end, I thought was a really, really interesting setup for the next book. So,
the polygamous relationship was really interesting. I really liked that. That was something I haven't read it before.
Yeah, I like that too. That was pretty interesting. My favorite section of the book is probably when they were on that island.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I actually really liked Demaya, the young girl, because, I mean, I'm all about give me a school that is teaching someone how to do something. Like, I really like boarding school books and magic school books and all of that stuff, so I just thought it did a really good job of introducing one side of the world with like the Fulcrum and the Guardians and all that stuff that we don't necessarily get to see as thoroughly explained in the other parts of the book. So I feel like if that part hadn't been there, we wouldn't really fully get like what the Guardians can do and why they do what they do and how that relationship dynamic works. So I actually really liked that part.
Yeah.
All right. Are you guys ready to vote in this category?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Fifth season for me.
Uprooted! No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to vote for the 5th season. So,
I would also vote for the 5th season first.
I'm uprooted.
Sorry.
Oh, man.
Fifth season.
What did you go for? Fifth season for Thomas.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
fifth
think
season.
that one's going to take the...
Fifth season is, it's absolute masterclass fantasy writing all the way through. It's just.
And Paul, did you vote? I didn't hear you.
5th season, yeah.
Okay.
I'm still tainted by the 100,000 Kingdoms. I'm sorry.
That was bad. That was a terrible book.
I really like that book.
I like
hate
that book too.
God's next.
No, it wasn't.
Do it for me.
They're a
No,
little
that was
odd,
not
but I
for
like
me.
that book.
It wasn't
didn't
terrible,
like
but
the
it wasn't.
whole sex scene just really.
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
Me and
that
Caitlin
was
read that
weird.
together. And I was
I never
like,
read that one.
We both were on the phone to each other like, what the hell just happened?
Okay.
We have a second, please.
The popular vote before we get totally derailed here. The 5th season won, and it actually it won on the first pass, which means that more than half of the people that voted for it first.
Wow.
Or half of the people that voted for it first. Which means that it couldn't have been beaten later. And then second was Uprooted, third was A Darker Shade of Magic, and fourth was Shadows of Self.
Fair enough.
Which
Interesting.
that's probably how I would have ranked them, so I don't know.
No, I would have done too.
I probably would have gone the exact opposite of that, but my expression and my feelings have been expressed. So.
I do think my opinion of the 5th season is going to change when the other books come out.
I agree.
If the other books work, it's going to be amazing. But if the other books just don't work, in this whole gimmick type thing, I might revisit this season and be like, it wasn't that amazing.
Agreed. So. You have to kind of take series like that as a whole anyway.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes. I mean, it's still the case where, I've read series where I think really, really highly in the first book, and then the second book just completely drops the ball. I mean, like, but it was so good up to that point.
Blood
Doesn't necessarily change my opinion of an earlier book if a sequel, just shits the bed, because that happens a lot.
Cough, cough, rat queens. Cough, cough, rat queens.
Yeah.
I tend to think of that as like a standalone book. If the first one's good, I'm like, right, it just cuts off there. Let's ignore everything after that. Doesn't matter.
I feel like
fifth season could be appreciated as a standalone. I mean, it really it is structured that way that it is sort of a complete entity unto itself. It just kind of comes together in this sort of perfect whole. But of course, now we're just we're all just so much interested now in the obelisks and what have you, and now it's time to get into deeper secrets about this world, and my intrigue is she going to be able to structure the future books just as perfectly as she did this one?
But that's what I think it is. I think she set the bar really high.
Very high.
Yeah. So we will see.
Just out of interest, because I know Caitlin, you listened to it on audiobook, didn't you?
I did.
Did anybody else audiobook it rather than read it?
Yeah,
I read.
The narrator of that one is really good too. I really enjoy that narrator.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. I wonder if that would make it a different read, like on an audiobook with the different
I listened
voices.
to Carry On as well, and Carry On I think was better for me because it was an audiobook.
Agreed. I think if I would have read Carry On, I wouldn't have liked it as much, but the audiobook was really good.
That's how I felt about Shadows of Self. I could not read it on paper, but I felt that the narrator did a good job with increasing some of the humor in the book, so I felt it definitely kind of bumped up some on audio.
See, I see. That's why I'm sort of reluctant to do an audiobook unless it's a book I've already read, or unless it's something I just don't plan to read, because it is a different experience from reading the book, and so I have to I always just have to remind myself that I've got to think of them as unique experiences, because a great narrator can make a really mediocre book sound much better than it really is.
Yeah.
And the opposite of that. I have had
lousy narrator
really
can wreck an
horrible
awesome
narrators.
and
Yeah.
can wreck like the Dune audiobook is like the worst thing ever.
God, it's so bad.
But because they try to do the full cast recording thing.
No, I don't like those.
And it's so bad because it's like every actor they get to play the Harkonnens is like talking in his goofiest cartoon villain voice.
It's so bad.
Like, I just want to stick pencils in my ears, listen to So it's.
Although, if you're looking for a good full cast recording, that's how I listened to the Golden Compass books.
Yeah,
And they were pretty spot on with their full cast recording.
Are really
That's
good.
a whole different avenue and rabbit hole to go down.
Well, that's not to say that you don't get that sort of like little magical mixture every once in a while where it all just kind of comes together. But a lot of the time, it's like I see audiobooks almost as like movie adaptations. Really, when you get right down to it, I mean, it's sort of like seeing the movie, reading the book. Each one has to be taken as a unique experience for me.
Yeah.
So,
I've been
like if I listened to an audiobook,
I-
I would not have considered myself to have read the book.
I've
If I
done
listened to
both. Like the Whisper Sync thing that Amazon does, where you can get it on Kindle and you can also audiobook it. I do them together. So I've been doing that with a couple of books recently, which has been really interesting, actually. So I quite enjoyed that experience of like full immersion.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely still count it as reading a book.
Yeah, I counted it as reading a
Yeah,
book,
so
and
do
I
I.
listened to narrators really sped up, like the maximum speed
Yeah,
I'm
I
allowed
do.
to speed it up.
Three speed,
Yeah.
that's where it's at.
So, I mean, a good narrator will impact my appreciation, and I think a really shitty narrator will impact my appreciation, but there's like 75% really don't impact me at all because they're all just, I'm trying to make them sound like the voice in my head when I'm reading, which is really, kind of fast, and so they just don't have as much uniqueness. It's like you have to be really good or really crappy for me to really notice that it's the narrator.
Yeah, I also always like test mine before I get an audiobook.
Yes.
Like I will listen to that sample before I download an audiobook because I'm not having a crappy one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, especially with those big epic fantasies. If we're going to spend 40 plus hours together,
we need to get along.
Yeah.
All right, so next year's awards. So we are planning on doing the awards again next year. I'm going to leave. So the Goodreads group has some threads where you can propose changes, and you guys can check that out. I'm going to put up polls for the community to vote on the changes, but I think I'm going to wait a little while because there aren't that many proposed at the moment. So I want to see if a few more people will propose something. So I'll probably set that up towards the end of the year. So you have a little bit of time, probably like 3 or 4 months, if you want to suggest something for the awards next year, to plan out your suggestion and post it, and then we'll do some sort of poll to see which ones the community wants to implement, and then the plan is. And then the plan is to, yes, Caitlin has a proposal. The plan is to have the nominations happen in February again next year. So we're going to be off for about 9 months here.
Mm-hmm.
That'll get those 2016 books read, everybody. Get to reading your nominations.
Yeah. Get ahead of time.
Okay. All right.
All right, guys.
Yep.
I think that's about it.
So
Yeah.
now it's time for the musical number, right?
Now it's time for Sam to go get her dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say thank you to everyone. So thank you to Nicole for organising us all.
Yes.
Behind the scenes.
Thanks to Sam
Yeah,
for
thank you.
hosting and having us all
And
come
thanks
in our
to
space.
Paul for organizing the BooktubeSFF Babble
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Fantastic idea.
And of course, thanks to the community for
Doing
voting.
Definitely. Thanks to everyone who voted and is watching the live show.
Oh,
I think
we can put it
Caitlin's
in our
probably
final.
one, or Paul.
Oh yeah.
Paul or Caitlin.
I think Paul should win because Paul is a man in a crown, and that is
Pretty
I
regal.
like that. All right. Well, we'll give the fan vote to Paul for that epic kingly.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Magnificent Burger King crown.
All right.
Thank you all for watching.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.